In this step, we're going to set up the animation blueprint. So what we've done so far is we've told Unreal Engine how to blend between our different animations, but we've not really told it when to blend them, and we've not told it which animations to play and why. Like, for instance, it doesn't know when to show the falling animation. And the animation blueprint is how we give it all of those instructions. So in our Rob Anims folder, we're going to right click, go to Animation, and find Animation Blueprint. The parent class, we're going to choose Anim Instance, and it needs to happen to our Rob Mesh skeleton. So we'll click on OK. I'm going to call this one Rob _ Anim BP. So Rob Animation Blueprint. Lovely. So we need to open this up. And everything in this window deals with which animation is shown and when. So this bit here, the result is whatever the final pose that we want to show is going to be. So we have to plug something into this, and we're going to create something called a state machine. So I'm going to right click here and start typing state machine, and then we can see add new state machine pops up. So we'll create that. I then want to just rename this. So I'm going to call this locomotion, which just deals with how the character moves. And the result of this is going to be what plugs into here. So even though we've done nothing yet, that's going to be the result. So we'll just plug that in now. And then we're going to double click on this to open it up. Okay, so here's our entry point. And what we're going to do is just drag out of this. We're going to add a state. And we're going to call this idle walk run. Oops, that's very annoying. So let's just make sure that we don't have random capitalized letters. Idle walk run, there we go. And then we're going to open this up. And what we need to happen in here is the blend space needs to play. So we're going to get this. We're going to plug that into the result. And we need something to drive this. So we're going to have to reference this somewhere so that this speed changes depending on what the character does. And the way that we're going to do this is just right click on speed, and we're going to promote this to variable. There we go. So now whenever this variable changes, it's going to feed into the blend space, which is going to change what animation is played, which is going to go to the animation output pose, which is very good. So if we now compile, the character should start to idle. That's because this speed variable is currently set to 0. There you go, you can see that that's set to 0. And because there's nothing else to drive it, that means that the output pose just becomes idle, which is good. So far, so good. If you want to see this in action, though, you can just go over to speed here, drag to the right, and as we move this up, oh, that's very upsetting for it. There you go. It doesn't like to do that in real time apparently, but there you go. We can now see that that's the walk. If we up that again, it'll go to the run. So we'll just set that back to 0 for now, and we'll compile. Okay, so that tells us how to have him idle, walk, or run, but it doesn't really tell us whether or not he should jump. So in order to do that, we're going to need to set a couple of things up. So let's just go back to locomotion. There we go. And we're going to need a condition of whether or not the character is in the air to do this. So now that we've got this set up, what we need to do now is create some logic to drive all of this. So we're going to go to the event graph up here. And you can see that it gives us these two notes to get us started, which is exactly what we want actually. And these are going to work together. So the first thing we want to do is see, is this valid? So make sure that this is actually the character we're using. So we're going to, first thing we'll do is that. What we also need to do is get the velocity of the character. So from this pawn owner, because this is our character, we're going to get velocity, which is basically just the speed that our character is moving at. From the return value of this, we're going to get the vector length. So vector length. And we're going to use that to set the speed. So let's get our speed variable, and we're going to set it with what that is. And so that now, the actual speed that our character's moving across the level is going to become our speed variable to drive the blend space. So that right there should do it. So I'm just going to comment this up so I know what's what. So I'm just going to select these 3 nodes here and press C. And we're going to do set speed. Nice. And then just with these 2 here, let's just make a bit of space for them. Comment C if pawn owner is valid. Just so that we know what everything's doing. Let's just compile that and make sure it's all working. We're not getting any errors, which I have to say to you is a very, very good sign. Okay, so at the moment, this would now work perfectly to get the character running around. Although we do need to set up the character blueprint, but if that was all done, he would run around. But what he wouldn't do yet is jump. And we're going to need to set that up as well. We need a variable to work out, is the character actually in the air? And we're going to do that in this logic as well now, just to get this set up. So out of here, so out of get pawn owner, we need to find something else. We're going to get a movement component. So get movement component. Lovely. And the movement component that we want is falling. Like that. So this return value then we're going to promote to a variable. Like that. And we're going to call that variable is in air question mark. Okay, so that is going to be whether or not our character is currently in the air. And we're going to set that using this. So actually what we're going to do now is before we do the speed, we're just going to cut in with this. So we're going to take our execution from here to set that and then to set that. So what we're doing now is every time the animation blueprint is updated, it's going to check whether or not the character is in the air, and it's also going to set the speed. So let's comment this is character falling. Okay, and that is pretty much all the logic that we're going to need for this now. So what we also need to do is just set up the jump. So let's go back to our locomotion. And out of the idle walk run, if we drag out of here, we can add another state. Oh, I didn't rename it properly. Let's rename it. And I'm going to call this jump. I'm calling it jump, but it's really falling. I want to keep it easy. And what we'll do is just open this jump, and we need to make sure that whenever this is happening, that it plays the fall animation. So let's just have that in there. And that's it. That's all we need to do for that. So let's just compile that. There you go. That's all set up. And because I've compiled it, you see, it's giving me a warning that this will never happen because I've got nothing set up to make it happen. So we're going to go back here now and we're going to make it happen. This little arrow here is what we call a transition condition. So we need to set something on this to tell it whether or not to transition from here to the jump. So here we're going to say, when is it allowed to go from idle walk run to jump? We'll double click on this and it's going to be whenever is in air is set to true. So if we compile that, it takes away the warning. So that's good. Every time our character is in the air, you're allowed to go to the jump animation. And then what we need to do is get this to go back. So we'll go like that. So this is now, you see we've got arrows pointing out. So to go from here to here, we set a condition. And then from jump back to idle walk run, we need another one. So it's going to be is in air. And we'll get that. And then we're going to need a not boolean. Like that. So whenever is in air is not true. There we go. That is now going to transition back to the idle walk run. So now what we're going to do is compile that. And that's it then. We have now set up the animation blueprint. We have all the conditions to play the animations so that now when we're in game, Unreal is going to know which animations we want to play and when, which is all very good stuff, I think. So moving forward, what we'll be doing next is setting up the actual character blueprint. This is the thing that we can put into the game. So I'll see you in the next step for that. I'm able to continue making these videos thanks to the ongoing support of my amazing Patreon community. If you'd also like to support Game Dev Academy via Patreon, then check out the link in the description below. Thank you.